Hello, everybody. Last week we talked about finesses, and today we're going to extend that concept to something that's generally called positional advantage. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And what we're going to do today is extend the concept of finesses or the idea related to finesses, and we're talking specifically about something called leading toward an unsupported honor. And we'll make clear what that is. Finessing is an important tool, and so is the idea of positional advantage. You know, I like to put an appropriate image on the front cover, and here's what I found for this week. I did not crop that image, and I find it absolutely hysterical. So for the first 7 weeks, we're going to talk about declarer play. And today we've worked our way up to what is loosely called Finesses Part 2 and Positional Advantage. And I think it's important to remind ourselves how we learn bridge. I'm not a neuroscientist, so I may have these bubbles in the wrong place, but the idea is somebody says something and you say, I never heard of that. And then the next time it's, somebody said that once. Wait, that rings a bell. And then you get to the point where there are things that you do all the time, how to make, what you need to make a one no trump opener, what you want to lead on opening lead. And it gets to the point where you don't even have to think about it. It goes into your reptilian brain, and that gives you more room in the rest of your brain to learn new things. So one of the things that I really like is repetition at the table, because it helps you recognize situations and go straight to that kind of reptilian brain thing and save the higher functioning portions of your brain for other activities. So here's the idea of positional advantage. It's totally crazy situation. You're the declarer. You clearly have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 immediate tricks you could take. You're going to have a hard time getting any tricks with those jack, because if you play ace king, they're not going to drop their queen under it. When you play the jack, they'll take it. But the person on your left has to make an opening lead. And no matter what she leads, she's going to give you a sure trick. She's going to lead. It's going to come around into your jaws in whatever suit she led. If she led hearts, well, the person on the right either plays the queen, in which case you have 3 tricks, or they don't play the queen, in which case you'll take the jack and the ace king for 3 tricks. So the message here is that playing fourth to a trick is a tremendous advantage, because you get to play last and you get to see the other 3 cards. And in fact, playing third to a trick is a big advantage as well, because one of the opponents has had to play before you, and then you can make your decision about what card to play after that. Here's a great example of positional advantage. It comes out of the Bridgemaster exercises on BBO. Let's suppose the contract is 3 no trump. If you count your winners, you have 8 immediate winners: ace king of hearts, ace king queen jack of clubs, and ace king of diamonds. You don't have many good prospects for another winner, certainly not hearts or clubs, maybe diamonds, and spades are kind of iffy. But then you take a look at the opening lead of the 10 of spades, and something actually magic happens. So let's think about what might happen on this trick. You play small from dummy, and then what does the next person do? I claim that's going to guarantee you a spade trick. Because if East plays the ace or the king to win the trick, you now have the queen and the jack that you can play on separate tricks. And their other high card can only capture one of them, so you're guaranteed a trick. And if East doesn't play the ace or the king, they play low, well, you'll win trick 1 with your jack. And notice how important it is to play low from dummy here. Typically, when the opening lead comes out, if there's a high card in dummy, but you have a matching high card, usually you're best off playing the low one from dummy and waiting to see what the next person does. And my mom's picture is down there, and the reason that her picture is down there is that she used to say, anytime you start a new suit on defense, which you have to do when you make the opening lead, you give up half a trick on average. And here's a case where the opening lead made me, as declarer, 100% confident that I could win a spade trick. So what we want to do today is recap last week about finesses, and then today we're going to talk primarily about leading toward an unsupported honor. It's a super valuable, super important technique. And my observation is that newer players tend to forget it when they're at the table. So I'm going to encourage you several times today to do it. So let's recap last week. We looked at a situation where, say, dummy had ace queen small and you have two small in your hand. Could be reversed. The two small cards could be in dummy and you could have ace queen small in your hand. And so what you want to do is you look at the ace queen and you think of them as jaws that are ready to chomp on the king. You're going to hope that the king is on the left and you're going to lead a small card toward the jaws. And if the king is on the left, you'll be able to take two tricks. If they pop up with the king, you'll win the ace, then the queen. If they play small, your plan was to play the queen, which you do. It wins the trick, and now you still have the ace as a winner. Another situation, ace and two small in dummy, queen, jack, 10 in your hand. Same idea. You hope the king is on the left. You lead the queen and you let it ride. And if the king is on the right, they'll win the trick. There's nothing you could do. But if the king is on the left, it's trapped. And you're going to win three tricks in this suit. And we also looked at situations that are very similar to that. And today we'll talk about this as leading the queen, which is a supported honor. It's supported by the jack, and in this case, the 10. The message here is if you lead the queen and they play the king on it, you still have the jack. You have set up the jack or established the jack. And we'll talk about that quite a bit today. Here's another situation. It's really just like the one before. But if you start by leading the queen, this time the support is in dummy. And nice thing about leading the queen is if the finesse works, if you win the trick, you're still in your hand. So you can repeat the finesse without having to use some kind of transportation to get back to your hand. And we looked at examples like this where there's ace, queen, 10 in dummy, and you have jack and two small in your hand. You start by leading the jack and you play the 10 under it. And if the finesse works, you're still here to lead again toward the ace queen. So that's what we did last week. Leading a supported queen is great. We looked at this example on the last page. The queen here is supported by the jack and the 10. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, where's the king? It could be on either side. We don't know. If West has the king, she's going to cover the queen, cover an honor with an honor. It's going to go queen, king, you'll take the ace, and now you have the jack 10, and you'll win three tricks. If East has the king, it'll go queen, small, small from dummy, and East wins the king. Well, you only get two tricks, but at least you tried to get another one. The king is going to be kind of 50-50 on the right or on the left. So by leading the queen and taking the finesse, instead of just banging down the ace, by leading the queen and trying the finesse, you'll gain a trick half the time. And I love taking tricks. So what's all this talk about an unsupported queen? And the short story there is that leading an unsupported queen never helps. Let's look at a very similar situation, ace and two small. This time the queen is in your hand, but you only have small cards with it. This queen is not supported. Let's look at what happens. We don't know where the king is. If West has the king, we will lead the queen. West will cover it because she covers an honor with an honor. And you can win the ace, but that's the only trick you're going to get. And what if East has the king? Well, you lead the queen and you let it ride around, but it loses to the king. You take only one trick. No matter where the king is, if you lead an unsupported queen, you don't gain a trick. You will never gain a trick if you lead the queen here. And the reason is it's not supported. The person on the left will cover it with the king, and you have nothing to fall back on. The hard thing here is it kind of looks like a finesse, but it's not. Well, this is a super, super important concept. I've tried a lot of ways to encourage people in this situation. Don't lead the queen. And this is the best that I could come up with. Don't lead the queen. Just try and think of this thing spinning around, just like you're spinning around whenever you look at a holding like this. So let's go a little more slowly and walk through some things. Same picture, ace and two small, queen and two small. Leading the queen can never help. It's not a finesse. Let's think about what happens if you lead from dummy toward the queen. So we're going to lead small from dummy toward the queen. We're going to hope that the king is over on the right. Well, what happens if the king is on the right? Well, if East plays the king, now your queen is good. And if East plays small, you follow through with your plan, you play the queen, and it wins the trick. So whenever the king is on the right, if we lead toward the queen, we're going to add a trick. And remember, when we led the queen itself, we never added a trick. So when we have an unsupported honor like this, we want to lead toward it. And if you think back to that crazy first slide that I showed, the queen here has positional advantage. She's sitting behind the king. That's what some people call it. She's after the king. The hand with the king has to play first, and we get to play afterward. And if it plays small, we win the queen. And if they play the king, we play small and we win the queen later. If the king is on the left, there's nothing we can do. But at least by leading toward the queen, we gave ourselves a 50-50 chance of gaining an extra trick. So this is 90% of today's presentation, but let's do the rest of it. Here's another similar situation. Dummy has, say, king small, and you have two small ones. What's going to happen if you start this suit from dummy? If you lead a little card from dummy, the opponents can see the king, right? Are they going to bang down their ace? I don't think so. They're going to save their ace to take the king. And so you'll lose the first trick, and then they'll use their ace to take the king. And if you lead the king first, they're going to take their ace, and then they'll get another. You'll never win a trick if you start this suit from dummy. But you do have some hope. We're going to hope that the ace is in West, and we're going to lead toward the king. And if the ace is on the left, this is what we hope for. The person on the left is pickled. If she plays the ace, your king is good. And if she plays small, you go with your plan and you play the king and it wins the trick. Now, if the ace is on the right, your king will lose to the ace. But 50% of the time, you have manufactured an extra trick. We say here that the king is behind the ace or the ace is in front of the king. And this is the situation we're hoping for. And we'll add a trick if we play the suit this way. Summary. Let's compare some situations. Here, the queen is supported by the jack and 10. If West covers the queen with the king, that will set up the jack and the 10. You'll win it with the ace. Now your jack 10 are good. In this case, the queen has no supporting cards, so we have to lead toward the queen. Because if we lead the queen and it gets covered, we haven't gained anything. But now we're hoping that the king is on the right. My brother in 1969-ish, after I led the queen in a situation like this, said leading the queen is not a finesse, it's a zero play. And that's what brothers are for, to teach and reinforce. So let's repeat. Don't lead an honor without supporting cards. Again, queen, jack, 10. We lead the queen because it's supported by the jack and the 10. If West covers, we've established the jack and the 10. In this situation, the queen has no supporting cards, so we have to lead toward the queen. I tried to come up with graphics that work for this, and this is the best I could do. This queen is supported, and this queen is not. If you lead this queen, it's just going to fall over and get crushed. So this situation arises pretty often, and it's super important. A lot of times we end up with a trump suit that looks like this. I open a diamond, partner bids a heart, I raise to 2 hearts, and our trump suit looks like this. Well, if we lead the queen, just like we saw on that prior slide, the queen will never take a trick. If West has the king, he'll cover it. You play the ace. You don't have any other tricks here other than length. And if East has the king, the queen will ride around and it'll lose. Leading the queen here never adds a trick. And the reason is the queen has no supporting cards. And that means we have to lead toward the queen. So what we're hoping is that the king is over here on the right. So the way we'll play this suit is we'll start by playing the ace, and then we will lead small toward the queen. And here's the typical situation. King is on the right, couple more cards, Jack 8 is on the left. We win the ace. No, turn on the annotator. We play the ace, small, 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 and now we lead a small one toward the queen. Well, if this person takes the king, now our queen is good. And if this person instead plays small, we play the queen and it wins the trick. And in either case, we're only going to lose 1 trick. So that's the idea. And this happens all the time. When you have a suit like this, you want to develop kind of a reflex. Play the ace, lead toward the queen, hoping it can win the trick. If you lead through East this way, and that's what East holds, East is helpless. The queen can win a trick, but only if you lead toward it. And as a side comment, why do we start by playing the ace? Well, once in a blue moon, the layout is like this. And we would hate to just lead toward the queen and lose to a singleton king. So we play the ace first, and then we lead toward the queen. Here's another situation where we might lead toward not 1, but 2 honors. So maybe our suit looks like this. Maybe this is our trump suit. If we just play the king, they'll take the ace. They've still got 3 more. We can take away 2 with the queen, but they're going to get another trick because they split, say, 3-2. We lose our king to the ace. We can win 1 more trick, but they have a big one remaining. So let's try this. Let's hope the ace is on the left, and let's lead small toward the king-queen. And if the queen or king wins the trick, come back to your hand and do it again. Here's the situation that we're hoping for. The ace is on the left, and they split 3-2. We don't care which side has the 2. We will, from our own hand, lead a small one. If this person plays small, we win. We come back to our hand somehow, and we do it again. And West is just stuck. If West plays the ace, our king can take away their last one. And if West plays small, we win the king. So this is what we're hoping for. If the ace is on the right, it doesn't work. If the ace is on the right, we'll lose the queen or king to the ace, and then they'll still get a trick. But at least we tried. That's the whole idea of leading toward an unsupported honor, is to try. So let's look at a summary, and with time at the table, you'll recognize these things in a flash, and there's no thinking required. And that's a beautiful state to reach, but it just takes time at the table, time at the table. With ace queen, you lead toward the jaws. With this kind of a situation, a supported queen, you can lead the queen toward the ace, hoping to trap the king in between. And if the king is played, you grab it. And again, here we're leading a supported honor. Sometimes you've got some of the support in each hand. So here we can lead the queen. If that person plays the king, we've still got the jack 10 in dummy. And we looked at this example also, ace, queen, 10 in dummy, jack in our hand. We lead the jack, planning to play the 10. If it holds the trick, we can do it again. If a little's good, more is better. And when we can, we want to keep the lead where we are so that we don't have to spend other high cards with transportation getting back. And then the very different situations we looked at today are the king all by itself, and we will lead toward the king, which is an unsupported honor. We're leading toward the card that we hope will take the trick. Or in this situation, ace and a couple small, queen and a couple small, could be 3 small. We will lead toward the queen. As I mentioned before, if it's your trump suit and it's 4-4, you'll take the ace first in the hope of a miracle that the king falls. And then you lead toward the unsupported honor. So that's the big theme today, is when you have an unsupported honor like this king or this queen, you want to lead toward it. Takes a while to get used to. The message that Deborah says is you lead toward the card that you hope will take the trick. So let's look at them again. Ace, queen, we're hoping the queen can win a trick. So we're going to lead toward it. And the whole idea of the positional value is that if the king happens to be on the left, then our queen has tremendous positional value because we get to play after the person on the left. And if they pop up with the king, we win ace queen. If they play small, we follow through with our plan and play the queen. And then we've got the ace for a second trick. With an isolated king on one side, we lead toward that king. And with an isolated queen, we can lead toward the queen. So these are the big messages of today. Let's review the key terms and ideas. We talked about a finesse, did that last week in a lot of detail. We talked about the jaws, that ace queen that's ready to chomp on the king, or that king jack that's ready to chomp on the queen if it gets played. We talked about the difference between supported honors and unsupported honors. We talked about the idea that maybe 50% of the time the finesse works or wins and adds a trick. That'll happen when the king or the queen or whatever your target card is on side, or it's in front of the hand that you're leading to. It's in front of the card that you hope will take the trick. And today we talked about leading toward an unsupported honor. Super important and wonderful technique. Remember, playing fourth to a trick is always an advantage. This is going to be a huge thing to think about as we work through more and more on card play, and particularly on opening leads and defense. And again, what we want to do is lead toward the card that we hope will take the trick. There's some homework to do. Hands on Bridge Master. Go to BBO, click on Bridge Master. You can be logged in or not logged in, it's up to you. And then go to level 1. Don't play higher levels. They're really hard. Go to level 1 and try these 5 hands. And there are a couple of hints here on a couple of things. And then what we're going to do here on week 3 is provide a gentle introduction to background and bidding, because the coach will explain the bidding on the hands, which are pre-bid. We'll play quietly, we'll discuss the play, and then we'll click next and move on to the next hand. And today's bidding will mention the ideas of inviting game and the notion of bidding 4 card suits up the line during the auction. Now, as long as we're having some fun, I'll show a picture of my mom. And this is a preview of week 9, leading through dummy's strength and up to dummy's weakness. These statements are all about positional advantage. And if you've had people talk to you about defense, these will probably ring a bell. So you're on lead in the middle of the hand, say, and you can see dummy has the king, jack, 9. You're pretty happy leading this suit because you're hoping that partner has something like the ace, queen, 10 and has tremendous positional advantage behind dummy's cards. So you lead through dummy's strength. And if you're in the opposite situation, you're sitting here on lead and you look over at dummy, which has all small cards, you're very happy to lead around to or up to dummy's weakness. And if you like bridge rhymes, imagine you're sitting here, the dummy is on your right. When dummy's on your right, lead the weakest suit in sight. So you lead this suit and your partner gets to play after declarer. And partner is not at all worried about what card dummy might play. So you lead through declarer, and you hope that partner has something like ace, queen, 10 behind declarer's king, jack, or maybe king, jack behind declarer's ace, queen. Anyway, you hope that by leading through, you can take advantage of partner's positional advantage, or even queen and a couple small behind ace, king, jack. Lead through a couple times, and partner will be able to get a trick with her queen. And one extra slide we have last week that we didn't talk about, I think this is just a totally cool situation. And it cropped up at the club the other day when I was, kind of assisting the people in the lower level game, and I didn't see it. So just remember that sometimes you remember these things and sometimes you don't. But it's a wonderful thing. Here you're pretty desperate to try to take a trick. If you lead small toward dummy and you play the jack, gosh, it's pretty likely that the king or queen is over here. And then they're going to still have the king, say it's the queen, they're going to still have the king 10, and you won't be able to get a trick from your ace 9. It only helps you to do that if the king and queen are both on the left. Instead, we'll lead toward the 9. And something magic happens. If the 10 happens to be on the left-hand side, when you play the 9, it forces the big card out of the right. And now they only have one big card left. And when you get back in, now you take a regular finesse with the jack. So I learned this when somebody did it to me at the bridge table. And that's why I like playing against people who play better than I do, because I look at what they do and I learn and I think, I want to do that. Finally, another appendix slide. Occasionally, you'll run into a really cool situation that's called the throw-in play. So let's imagine for a minute that you're declaring 3 spades, and you and your dummy have exactly the same distribution. Looks like you have no spade losers. You have 1 heart loser, the queen of hearts. You might lose a trick to the queen of hearts. You have 2 diamond losers, and you have the ace of clubs, but after that you have 2 club losers. So you have 2 diamond losers and 2 club losers. So you can't afford to lose a heart. So I hear you saying, oh, we'll just take a finesse for the queen of hearts. And that's a great idea. But in this situation, there's something even cooler. You have 8 easy tricks. Let's see what happens. They lead a club and you take the ace. And then you pull trump. Say it takes 2 rounds, 3 rounds. And now you've got this situation. What I'm going to do if I'm declarer, I'm just going to throw them in. I'm going to play a diamond and they're going to win the trick. And they're probably going to win another diamond. And then they're probably going to win a couple of clubs and they've won their 4 tricks. But now look what happens. If this person is on lead and leads a heart, I get a free finesse. I get to play fourth, and I'm not going to lose a heart. If the queen shows up, I'll win it. If the queen doesn't show up, I'll win it low. And if the person on the other side is on lead, the same thing happens. Believe it or not, this actually happens at the bridge table. And then the other really cool thing is, suppose they lead a club, you discard from this hand and you ruff in that hand. And now you're down to the ace and the king of hearts and all trumps. So this is one of the most fun things that ever happens at a bridge table. Is it easy to see in advance? Not necessarily, but occasionally it'll happen, and it is just totally cool. So that's the story, and I appreciate your patience today. Thanks.